I honestly don't really know if I have any like passions like that where I'm like, I want to like start a bakery or something.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a patient that their company IPO'd and it was a startup, and like he was like 32 or something, and he just like retired off of that, traveled for 6 months, and then just started like making cookies, like at his house, and he like got like
cookies.
a commercial license, and now he does like. That's just what he does. He sells them. He'll go to tech companies and like whenever they have like their parties and stuff like that. And that's literally what he does. And he's like, yeah, dude, I just like to bake. I could do that because I don't have to work a regular job.
Bro.
And it's
That's you've made it in life.
The cookies were fire.
Yeah,
they were really
better
good.
be shit.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the 2 Coin Podcast. It's your boy Ronnie.
I'm your brother Waleed, the other side of the coin. Today's episode is brought to you by
Shit, man, commitment, because you know what I mean. You flew all the way back from Seattle to get this, bro. We committed to this 2 Coin
for this
shit.
specifically.
For this specifically, man. They don't need to know the details.
Yeah, exactly. Today we got a special guest, man.
We do got a special guest, bro. You know what I mean? It's the craziest. How'd you describe it real quick? It was the universe playing the biggest trick on you. You know what I mean? We got the Jamaican Kunal Patel, Dr. Kunal Patel. My bad, brother. How you living, brother?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. We've been talking about hopping on this podcast for a little bit.
For a while,
bit,
bro.
yeah.
For a while. Where you
Sure.
from originally? You know what I mean? What brought you out here? And like, you know what I mean? Let the people know a little bit about you.
Yeah, so born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. Lived there till I was a teenager, and then my folks still live back out there. And I moved to Miami for a little bit of high school with my mom, and then moved to Atlanta for college. She moved back home, stayed in Atlanta for 4 years, moved back to Miami for a year, went to PT school in Austin, stayed there for 4 years, and then I had a rotation here in Campbell. It's my first time in San Jose. One of my sisters lived in San Francisco, so I was like kind of familiar with San Francisco, but I had never been to San Jose or anywhere else. And then came here for 3 months and ended up staying. That was like right before COVID hit, and then I've been here ever since. Yeah, been here ever since. Been like,
You said your whole family's still in Kingston, Jamaica?
well, I have 2 older sisters. One's in New York, and then one's in SF.
Okay.
And they did the same thing. They went to college in America, and that was always kind of the plan. A lot of people in Jamaica, like a lot of my friends, will go to school abroad.
Yeah.
Either here or like Toronto is a big hub. But my parents and then like my uncles in that generation, they live back home.
When you said here, you mean California or the Bay Area specifically?
Which
You
mean?
said here in Toronto?
Oh, my bad. I meant like the U.S.
U.S. is
Okay,
okay,
the U.S.
okay.
and Toronto. Like New York is a big spot. Obviously, like Toronto has a massive Caribbean population, so that's probably more common. Actually, there's such a small Caribbean population.
So
here
that's why you got
in the
that
Bay.
Drake tattoo. I'm just fucking with you, brother.
So how old were you when you came to the US for the first time?
Well, when I moved here,
Yeah, when you moved.
I was like 14.
Okay. So like I'm curious to know like what the process is for somebody coming from the Caribbean or from Jamaica.
Yeah.
Cuz I can speak for, I'm from Sudan. Everybody knows that, but like
Yeah.
the process for us is a lot harder because to put it lightly, the country's like has been going through a poor economic and social type of scene. So the US government is very careful about who it lets into the country. So like the way my parents got in here was through this system called the lottery, immigration lottery system. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, where it's like you apply for green card or asylum and then they select you at random. And then you come to the States and then it's like a 2-year process to get your green card and then a 5-year process after that to get your passport. Everybody I know has gone through either that or something even worse to become a U.S. citizen by coming from Sudan. Is it that difficult from Jamaica or like neighboring countries in the Caribbean, or is it like a lot easier and a smoother process?
It's a good question. It is a pretty hard process in general, and a lot of people come on like work visas or student visas and stuff. But my parents were both citizens, and so we all were also U.S. citizens. So that was a pretty easy process. They started that process a lot earlier, and we visited here a lot. Just to Miami, we had a lot of family friends that were also from Jamaica that emigrated in the like 70s. And so they started that process a while back, and they both were citizens. So, but I have a lot of friends that go through, the process of being able or trying to get a work visa and stuff like that, and it not really working out.
Hey, was your parents? So your parents would be considered first generation out here then, or not even?
I guess yeah. I mean, they never really stayed out here, so.
But as far as the citizenship wise,
but yeah, they
but
would
then
be considered first generation.
you and your siblings are the ones that actually like decided to build a life out here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we all have dual citizenship between here and Jamaica.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super random question: Is the Caribbeans considered like a U.S. territory or not? They're their own. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So I think
You said Miami. So is Miami like one of the biggest like hubs, ports of like Caribbean culture transferring over?
yeah, definitely. I think South Florida in general. So Miami and just probably like an hour north and south of that, and all those cities are massive. And then New York obviously is a huge hub. But those are two of the biggest. So
I mean, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but so what's your Indian roots out there, and like, you know what I mean? What's that background with Jamaica and India?
Yeah. So there's actually like, moving here, it's funny because like we have that conversation, like it seems so funny to be an Indian and say you're from Jamaica, but there's like a massive Indian population in Jamaica. Like it's very, very common. And there's actually an even bigger Chinese Jamaican population.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, which is yeah.
I don't think I've ever met a single Chinese Jamaican.
Yeah, I know that like by the numbers, there's actually more Chinese Jamaicans than there are Indian Jamaicans, but both are like you'll go to Kingston or most places, like most big cities, and you'll see, Indians and Chinese people everywhere. Like, and they're fully emigrated. I mean, generations and generations of people. Like my grandfather's the one that came to Jamaica when he was super young, and so I would be the third generation there. And when he came, he was the first of like North Indians or like Gujaratis to come, but they're also friends that we have that have been there for like 5-6 generations over there.
So your grandfather immigrated from India to Jamaica, is what you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so has any Indian culture been passed down through generations, or has it just all been straight up Jamaican? Because I personally didn't know Jamaica was such a melting pot.
Yeah.
Like people see Jamaica and they think, okay, it's just black people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a misconception in America. So I'm curious, like when you say Chinese Jamaicans and Indian Jamaicans, do any of those cultural norms stick through generations, even though you have no like connection to India personally?
You mean like my personal experience with it, or just in the country as a whole?
I guess speak to your personal experience, and then maybe if you can to the country as a whole.
Yeah. So there definitely are some like traditions that have passed down. Like I wouldn't say that like we like denounce everything that's Indian or anything like that. It's just we were brought up pretty culturally Jamaican and like in that space, you know what I mean? So religiously, like our parents never kind of like pushed any sort of religion on us. Speaking the language, like my eldest sister speaks it pretty well and she's religious. My middle sister like kind of understands it. I don't speak it or understand it at all. So like,
You talking about Gujarati or Hindi?
Gujarati.
Okay.
Yeah.
You speak Patois?
I do. And so I would say so. And I mean, like that's just kind of how we grew up. But in the country as a whole, like there's a lot of that mix and that influence. So a lot of Indian norms and Chinese norms have been passed on to the Jamaican people, and everyone kind of knows about all these other things,
Okay.
How are y'all? My bad, I didn't cut you off. How are y'all received out there, or is it just everybody's just everybody?
It's all the same, man. It's pretty interesting if we were to talk about like racism, and like Jamaica's very classist as opposed to being very racist, and that goes back to like slavery days and like indentured servants and all of that stuff. But it's very classist. So you'll have Indians, Chinese, and like black Jamaicans all on one side, and they'll have discrimination to other like Indians, Chinese, and black Jamaicans. You know what I mean? It's very light skin, dark skin thing. Yeah, I think it goes back to like when there was slavery. People weren't staying in Jamaica, so they were, having like the fair skinned people kind of rule over the darker skinned people, and it's kind of how it was here. Just in terms of like, well, what do they say? Like light skinned people, like house slaves or something. However they try to term
talking
that.
about like the light skinned ones are the ones that work inside, the dark skins work out in the field.
Yeah. Except there was still like someone like the white person that was there was no really white person in Jamaica for that. It was like
Just
the
each
light skin,
other.
dark skin, situation.
Okay.
You talk about the house Negro and the field Negro.
Yeah,
There you go. You say, brother.
yeah. I was about to say, I tried to tiptoe around that as well as I could.
I got you. But like veering off into that, so you're a certified physical therapist, right?
Yeah. I have my doctorate in physical therapy.
Doctorate in physical therapy. So you're officially Dr. Kunal Patel.
Yes.
So did you know from an early age you wanted to get into medicine and physical therapy, or is that something that kind of presented itself as you moved along in your studies?
No, I actually decided really, really late. Like I knew, or I thought I just wanted to do medicine. I guess kind of growing up, just I didn't really know much else. There's no one that does medicine in my family, and I was thinking about like the money and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And then I got to college and I took some of those classes, but I just wasn't really feeling med school for like a very short amount of time. I was like, I'm gonna do dental school because I feel like dentists like really hack the system. You know, like 4 years of school,
Low key, yeah.
Yeah, like you don't do that much schooling and you make so much money. So like at a point, like I think I was still like just money motivated, and then or it was like my senior year of college. Thankfully, like all the healthcare schools, you take the same classes, so you can kind of pick and choose what you're gonna go into. You know. And I was just trying to figure out what to do. Like, you know, I had a personal training background at this point. Like, I wanted to do something where I could work with people. Like, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, and I was just trying to figure that out. And then physical therapy just checked a lot of boxes for me where I was like, you know, like I get to spend time with my patients and like create more like lasting relationships. Like I spend more time with them than being like a physician or in another field. So it checked a lot of boxes like that. And then I kind of decided on a whim. I took my GRE and then applied to PT schools like the next year. I applied to like one school.
So the process is you go through an undergrad degree. What did you get your degree in undergrad?
Psychology.
Psychology. And then you go through PT school directly after that?
Yeah, so you get your undergrad, you take the GRE, then you apply to PT schools, and then, you know.
The GRE is like the test that you take, kind of like the LSAT.
It's like the GMAT, yeah. Okay. It's like one of those.
So how long, because I know for med school in America, like it's tough. I know a lot of people that are like very bright that started and had the intention to do med school.
Right.
But how long it takes and the intensity of the studies is something that turns a lot of people off and they end up going in a different direction.
Right.
Which is understandable because it takes 10 to 12 years, like on average, to become like a doctor. How long is that process for physical therapy? Like in total number of years?
Total number of years, I'd say about like 8.
Okay. So it's still kind of long.
7, 8. It's pretty long. I mean, it's definitely
That
something
8's
where
including your bachelor's.
Yeah. It's like
Okay,
all the
bro.
schooling that you would have to do from the time you from the time you get to school, college.
Real quick, my bad. You said you got a degree in psychology. How much of that like transferred over to the prereqs you had to check off for DPT?
I think it wasn't any of the. I did psych just because I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I don't think I actually had to take any psych classes for the DPT. But while I was doing psych, I was taking all my science courses, and that's a big one. So I took my bios, my chem, my physics. And that's what I mean by if you take those 3 and maybe like organic chem, you can pretty much apply to whatever healthcare school you want. Maybe you throw calculus in there.
You did that personally, not because your psych degree needed it.
Yes, I did it because I knew like I still wanted to go into that field, you know, like healthcare in general. So I was like, let me just take these classes so I have it. Then when I figure out what I want to do, I'll just be able to decide what direction to apply in, you know?
Well, that's really good foresight.
Yeah,
100%. How old are you at this time?
20, 21. But
Not many people are thinking like that at 2020.
no, but during college, like I still thought I wanted to do medicine or dental. So you know what I mean? Like I didn't know that I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
I just didn't know exactly which direction, you know?
Okay.
So it worked out well, but it's not like I just like didn't want to do healthcare at all and then happened to take these classes. Like I still was thinking, like I went into undergrad freshman year thinking, all right, I'm gonna do medicine.
You was gonna branch out.
So I started taking those classes early on, freshman, sophomore year.
Nice.
Was when I started taking them. So
I've heard horror stories about organic chem.
it's the worst
Yeah.
class of all time.
I know people that have like completely abandoned shit.
Yeah,
because
you'll change
of
your whole
OChem alone.
career because of it. You know, like
That's
it's a
crazy.
tough class, and like, you know, all these schools are so competitive to get into, that there's so much pressure on doing good in those classes. It's not even just passing it. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to ace all of these classes because you know, like when you apply to schools, all the other candidates are going to be so. You know, it's just going to be such a competitive field.
Let me ask you this though, because I know people that study medicine or any like related fields in medicine, like physical therapy, kinesiology is another good example. The schooling part is extremely stressful. Like there's no doubt about that. I come from like an engineering background, and everybody that I talk to and that I've went to like engineering school with that's now employed, the schooling part was very stressful. But then once you get that degree or your graduate degree, then you go into engineering practice, whatever that is. The work life is a lot less stressful compared to the school life. I wonder if that's the same case for your field.
Yeah, so the school is crazy rigorous and it's year round. So I think my school, like, you had 2 week breaks in between trimesters, but I mean, it's spring, summer, fall for 2.5 years, depending on what school you go to, and then you have your rotations, which is like your residency or your clinicals, putting some practice in. But that was pretty rigorous, and then your work life is better. I think they say PT is like one of the like happiest careers that in that ranking.
Yeah, because it's a lot of it is delayed gratification. You're doing
Facts.
a lot of the hard work now, so you can just chill out later.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about the job market or
Right.
Like how am I gonna pay for my next meal type of shit. So
Yeah, definitely.
But are you an independent practice? So like, forget this might sound like a dumb question, but I'm used to like the corporate world and having a boss and answering to him.
Right.
I don't know how that same kind of system works for like somebody who practices medicine and has a
He the
doctor's
boss and
office.
everybody answers to him.
You don't answer to nobody, right? So how does somebody get into like independent practice to where I'm booking an appointment with Dr. Kunal Patel?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. But even before that, what I was about to say, with the nice thing about healthcare, medicine, stuff like that, is that that type of practice is very autonomous too. So like the doctors that I hire, I don't tell them how to treat. So like, yes, they technically have a boss, but like, it's not something where they have to meet my expectations on certain things. So you come into practice and you're like, hey, like, I have my degree, I treat a certain way. Like, I'm kind of left alone to see my patients and treat them as I see fit. So that is really nice. And you get that, as soon as you get out of school and you get into practice. It's very uncommon for someone to like tell you how you should be treating it. You know what I mean? Like you should have that autonomy as soon as you get out, and that's what you're getting hired for.
Now, real quick, is that because of like how rigorous that coursework is and what it takes to get that degree? By the time you out of it, everyone knows that if you got a DPT, you're knowledgeable.
Yeah, I think, and then that's why like you have your clinical rotations too. Like it's not just all didactic work and book work, and then you just go into practice. Like you have, almost a year of working under a CI, like a clinical instructor, and having that person mentor you and
hands-on
work,
experience.
Hands-on, yeah, you know what I mean? So like by the time like I take on students now myself, and by the time like they leave their rotation with me, like they're pretty much like up to an entry-level PT. Like I actually hired 2 of my students after their rotations. Because basically it was like 3 months of me getting to mentor them, and like I get to see how they work, all of that stuff, and then it works out really well.
So now that you're a full-time professional, is the mentorship for students that are in the rotation, is that something you do voluntarily or is that required of you?
Yeah, no, it's completely voluntary. To do to keep your license active, you do have to do like a certain amount of continuing education, and you do get credits for taking on students, but it's just something that I've always liked. Like I wanted to get into the teaching side of things at some point in my career, like and this is my way of like being able to,
is that mostly, my bad, not to cut you off, but is that because you put yourself in their shoes and you know what it's like having been there, and you just want to make it easy for the next generation?
I'm actually probably pretty hard on them, so I wouldn't say I would make it easy, but it's because I got a lot of passion for the field, and I feel like there's a gap. Like some of my experiences with my rotations and from what I heard from other students and stuff when I was there just weren't good at all. And so I kind of wanted to like change it by being, a part of it and trying to do my best. So I feel like it's a good way for me to give back. It's a good way for me to mentor students and give them like, have them be better than I was when I got out of school, And on the plus side, you get a little bit of Con Ed credits for it, but
nice.
I don't really, yeah.
Quick question though. I know we had kind of talked about it off air the other day. What's the difference between the DPT and then getting a PhD in physical therapy?
So you can't get a PhD in physical therapy.
Okay. He's like, Ronnie, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no. So you can do a PhD in like something like in a related field, like kinesiology or something like that. But the DPT is specific to just being a practicing physical therapist. So there's no other degree that you can get other than
above that.
It's like if you go to med school, like you'll be a physician, will be an MD, and then they can like specialize and do other things. But they have to be an MD first. You can't like jump and
do the next step,
do something else before. You know what I mean? So you have to be a DPT, and then if you want to do like the non-clinical side of things and you want to get into research and doing stuff like that, then you don't have to do a PhD, but if you want to, you would get into the PhD side of things and do research
Would you
on
be
certain
able
things.
to teach at a school right now if you wanted to?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't need a PhD in order to do that.
No.
When you're okay.
I
Okay.
actually don't know any. I don't think I know any PTs personally that have a PhD. I don't think any of my professors did. But I know it is like something that you can do if you want.
Got you. That's more of like a passion project if you have.
I think so.
Gotcha.
I mean, you'd probably be able to do it mostly like online and stuff, and it would take some time, but it would definitely be on the research side of things if you wanted to get deeper into that.
Got
You'd
you.
probably
Okay.
go the route of a PhD.
I mean, so going back to what he was saying about starting your own clinic, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that I was kind of wondering about too. One, obviously you got the degree, you got your base set, right? Because you need that before you can even like build something. What's the next steps? Like, do you need to have like a base foundation of funds that you need to be able to put in? Are you able to get a loan based off of your experience? Like, what's the process of, running your own clinic?
Yeah. Just like any other business, I think like you would need a certain amount of funds. You could always take out a loan, obviously, and then your funds are based on, what construction you need to do, paying the contractor, having enough reserve to pay salaries before you're making money, stuff like that. I will say the route I went isn't super common, so it's not very common to build a practice from scratch. It is very common to buy an existing practice because with that, you buy the existing caseload and the patients, and you usually transition out. I know, like, dental offices do that all the time. I mean, most medical offices
Ophthalmologists do that too.
Yeah, so it works out well because you're not buying the practice, you're buying
My bad, that's the glasses, right? Okay.
Yeah. You're not buying the practice alone, you're buying the patient case, right? And so you look at that, and then usually there's like a transition of like, all right, there's going to be a 2-year transition or however long it is. When I was looking to open my practice, I actually, around that time, I was looking to buy a practice in Mountain View, and the person who was selling it wanted to do a 5-year transition where it would be like a 20%, 80% year one, and then kind of shift by 20s over the course of 5 years. Actually phases her.
You 20,
no, 20-80 myself.
Okay.
Or 20 me, 80 her.
And then over the
and
5
then
years.
40-60, 60-40, and go and phase it out that way. I didn't end up going with that, obviously, and for other reasons, but that was a pretty common thing.
Go ahead.
So that's, I was gonna ask, that's the benefit in starting your own patient case from scratch and building your own practice from scratch versus buying it from somebody else, is you don't have to split the earnings with somebody else. Or is there another benefit to why you went that route?
Yeah, I think, you get to really create the practice you want when you start it from scratch. It comes with a lot more risk, obviously. Like, first month, you're standing there, you see one patient a day, if that, you're just kind of like twiddling your thumbs. But then you get to grow it as it is. Like, I got to cater to what kind of patients I wanted. I got to market to what kind of patients like I specialize in, stuff like that. If I buy an existing practice, I can make some changes, but I also am having to emulate what those patients are probably used to receiving. And if we have a different style of treatment or different treatment philosophies, then that becomes an issue. So
It's like you buying another culture at that point.
Yeah. So like, I think I wanted to go this route, and yeah, for a lot of those reasons. Like, I just wanted to kind of create my own.
Because I never think of it like that. Like, medical professionals, if you're running your own practice, it really is just running your own business. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover between, I mean, not crossover, but it is what it is. Like, a business owner and somebody that's running because you have to market. You have to, you're
billing, insurance stuff.
Yeah, and
paying contractors.
Your customers are your patients. Like, you're adding value to them, and
Right.
You got to find a way to market yourself and bring more patients in. But
100%. Yeah. Make relations with surgeons. Like all of that stuff.
How does the marketing aspect of it work? Because I mean, obviously, at some point, if somebody goes through an injury, like sports related injury, they need physical therapy, right? Nobody's just gonna go out seeking physical therapy just off of a whim. So
Right.
How do you market yourself to where, hey, come see me before you see anybody else?
Yeah, so I think the biggest way, and I started doing this, like, I always knew I wanted to own a practice someday. So when I came out here, I got into private practice, working with other people. I already started to create relationships with surgeons. And so when I started marketing, the main source I went to was a lot of the surgeons I've worked with in the past, and basically told them, hey, I'm opening this new practice. I'd love to treat your patients if you send them over this way. Now I'm not at the previous place that I was at. And, you kind of let your work speak for you. Like, if you're good at what you do, those patients are going to be very satisfied with it. They go back to their surgeons for their post-op appointments and stuff. They talk about that. The surgeon hears that name a decent amount of times. They like how their patient is progressing from their surgery. They're more willing to send you. Like, it's a very symbiotic relationship if you just take pride and you do good work. So that was the main part of it. Obviously, you do a little social media push, and you do, I've been blessed. Like, business has been quite good that we haven't had to do some very hard marketing. Like, word of mouth has just helped us grow. But yeah, initially it was just all the surgeon's office, all the doctor's offices in the area, just putting them at least even on notice that this is here. And then
You mentioned off air about how you had like a knee injury and you had to get surgery. How does a physical therapist go about their own physical therapy?
Yeah.
Do you go see somebody else, or you do everything yourself?
Yeah, so I think like the worst thing you could do is probably try to treat yourself. So I one of the physical therapists that works for me is actually the one treating me. And I asked him, because, that's a weird dynamic, like treating your boss and like all of that stuff. But I asked him if he'd be like up for it, and he said he was, and I trust him. I think he's great. So he's just been handling my care, and I told him, I'd just be a good patient, like not question it, not try to change anything. I'll just like listen to what he says. So that's been kind of hard, but I've been doing that.
He's probably in a weird situation. He has to make sure he's doing everything perfect. Like, we got to see if this guy knows what he's talking about.
Right. So that's why I definitely want to ask him. I was like, you could say no, like it's fine, but he said he was up for it. And I respected it. I was like, that is a weird question. I don't know if.
Going back to the initial topic of your cultural background.
Yeah.
So how you and Ronnie met? It was Ronnie thought like he was like my Indian brother, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Every time.
Hey, my bad. Before we get into that, I just had one last question about the opening up your business and whatnot, because you had said the 20/80, 40/60, and then it translations, right? So let's just say like a 5-year period. So it'd probably be about 5 years. In that 5th year, you'd make 100% of the profit during that transition, right?
Or own 100% of the business.
100% of the business. Now, versus you opening up your own clinic, how many years were you in the red? And then how
That's a
long
good
till you
question.
see in the green? And then what was the motivation to keep you going? Because like
Yeah.
being down a lot of money is like, you know what I mean?
It's not fun. Yeah, we honestly, I had financial projections drawn up like 5 years, and we surpassed those. And even with that, it still took about 1.5 years to get out of the hole.
So you were paying your employees out of pocket.
Yeah. So, well, yes, kind of. We had the revenue that we were generating. So we were able to cover the cost from the revenue we were generating, but then there was always that hole from the initial investment, right? So if you say, you put in just like random numbers, but you put in $300,000 and 100,000 of that is construction, and then the 200 is business expenses, salaries, or whatever,
so
just to cover.
Yeah, so you have that set already.
Yeah, so even if I'm generating, my expenses are 40 grand a month, but I'm making 60, right? Those expenses include salaries and all that. I'm only getting 20, so now that hole is 280 and then 260. So it takes time. It's not like it's literally out of pocket, right? Because I got to pay myself a salary and then pay everyone else. But that incremental cut down until that initial debt is zero, and then all the money you make above your expenses would be your profit.
Yeah.
And that's actually in the green.
And you said
then
that
you
was
keep a
what,
little
a year
bit
and
as
a
a
half?
business reserve and stuff. No, actually, I'm trying to think how long I've been in business. No, yeah, a year and a half. Like I opened January 2023. I think sometime like late last year, probably like September. I think we finally saw it turning. And now
You got to have like a long-term
green.
vision to be able to like.
You do, and the initial projections were like, make back initial investment in like 3 years. But I mean, again, like this is owning a business in general is just a long-term thing. As soon as you make a little bit of money. Now we're doing a second location. That's like more money going out. You know, like you're doing all this work right now, but
a little bit of pain up front, like being in the red, that comes with the territory of any business. Like,
and you know, a lot of healthcare practitioners don't want to own businesses. I'd say maybe like 10% of my class, if that, wanted to own a practice. Like they're like, I want to treat patients. Like I'm doing PT school to become a physical therapist because I like what the job is and I just want to treat. Like
Not everyone trying
and I
to be a
respect it.
businessman.
Yeah, like because sometimes you miss it. Like I have days where I'm like, man, I just want to like treat patients, you know, and I still do treat, but like it's like
there's a lot more on
like
your plate.
like I'm always thinking about the business side of things, and like you know, like I knew like that's what I was getting myself into, but sometimes you miss just being able to just clock in, work with your patients, clock out, and go. But you know,
it comes with the territory. If you have ambition to come, like being a business owner, man, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But going back to my initial question before Ronnie cut me off.
You know what I mean? You moved to Seattle, bro. Our synchronicity ain't on. No.
Hey, man, we still good, man. But you and Ronnie met like gradually, and Ronnie thought you were Indian. He's like, my Indian brother, yada, yada, yada. How many patients before, like when you were treating more often, did you get that were actually Indian that just assumed right off the bat that you were that? And you had to have that conversation that goes way deeper into like, now I got to explain my background. Yeah. I've had a stressful day. I don't want to get into it. How many times does that happen?
It's funny. I mean, a lot of patients won't get into it that much, so then I don't have to. Like, it'll typically be like like if I say like I'm going home or something, like, oh, where's home? I'll say Jamaican. They'll be like, oh my God, you're Jamaican. I didn't know. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like I don't want to get any deeper than that, you know. But it is funny because I have had like there's obviously a large Indian population in the Bay Area, and I've had like people walk into my clinic and just like start speaking like Hindi to me straight up, like, and I'm like, you need to stop. I don't know what you're saying, like, and they're like shocked that I don't know what's going on, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't know. I can't
leave it
help
at that.
you.
Like I don't understand you. You don't leave it into why.
I try to not get into that too much. Yeah, one, because I'm probably just tired of explaining it.
Yeah.
But two, also, I'm like, I guess, I don't feel the need to explain it to everybody.
That situation when you was out in Atlanta and Miami more so than the Bay Area?
Not as much. Definitely not in Miami because there's so many, Caribbean people, and a lot of those Caribbean people are Indian, and it's not just Jamaica, right? Like in the Caribbean, like hella brown people are from Trinidad, like Guyanese people, like there's just a lot of brown people in the Caribbean. So Atlanta also had a pretty big Caribbean population. So it was just the more you know. Here, I think because there's such a small, Caribbean population, like people here in Jamaica, they think it's like, I mean, you were saying like, you thought it was just a majority. It is a majority black country, but they think it's just like Jamaican people are black people. You know what I mean? And like, until you go there and see it, you don't really realize.
I mean, to be honest, I didn't even. Maybe it's just my me not being knowledgeable about it, but like to be honest, bro, like I didn't even know we had a population out there until I met you, and then you put me on game.
I mean, that's like I didn't realize how many Fijian Indian people.
I was gonna say it's the same
until
thing
I moved here. Yep. And then I met a bunch, and I was like, I had no clue. I had never met a Fijian Indian.
Exactly.
Before.
And a lot of that knowledge too from people outside the culture just comes from geography. So like if you're on the East Coast, New York, Miami, et cetera, like naturally there's gonna be a lot more immigrants from the Caribbean. Whereas if you're from here, California, there's going to be a lot of like I went to a lot of like Fijians went to high school with me.
Out here,
yeah. So like I know kind of their background and their history, and there's a lot of Indians in Fiji, but they're not technically Indians. So it's just
same situation. Yeah,
exposure geographically.
It's crazy you say that because like me hearing a Fijian Indian, that's normal to me. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But like
you go to the East Coast, they never heard of it.
Yeah, facts. Because they think poly, they just think actual like Polynesians. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel that.
So, I mean, what are your ambitions? You don't have to disclose if you don't feel comfortable because, you don't want to put your business out there. Your ambitions for the next couple of years and where you want to take your practice and.
Yeah. So this practice is going pretty well. We're set to open a second location, hopefully by like summertime. And then the 5-year goal is really to have 3 of these realistically. If we can do more, we'll do more. But 3 was kind of the number, and then just be able to take a little time off.
Yeah, like take a little time off.
Be able to not work as much as I work right now because that passive income is kind of supporting a little bit. But yeah, three locations is the goal.
Nice. And how does retirement work with this type of practice? Because, you know, if you work for a company, they set you up with a 401k. You don't even got to look at it until you get ready to retire.
Yeah.
But obviously, you have to set all that up yourself, right?
Yeah, we do a 401k. I mean, so I would say, like, as of right now, I have 10. With me, it's 10 employees. So, you know, it's not just myself anymore. When I started, it was just myself and a receptionist, and now I have 5, including myself. Physical therapist working, and then some assistants, and then a receptionist. So, yeah, we do like the 401k and the retirement stuff, the insurance, all of that stuff. But
A lot of stuff goes behind the scenes in running a business.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, all of that stuff is
What's
no
retirement
different
look
than
like
anything
for
else.
you though?
Like, what do I want it to look like?
Yeah, because it's one of those, like, your employees is looking at the 401k, but I know that's not what you looking at.
Yeah. So, I mean, with this business model in general, the idea is that passive income is just the business is just generating money by itself, and you're just taking distributions from it. So, for me, it's just, all right, well, you know, can these businesses generate enough income that I can just live off of the distributions? You know, obviously, like, retirement in general, like, I have other, like, investments and other things that I'm doing to set myself up just in other ways, obviously. But, like, but with the business, that's the goal. And so my number in my head, I guess everyone has a general number, right? Like, my number in my head is like, okay, well, if this business does what it's supposed to do and I can have 3 of these, and it'll be a very comfortable life for what I want, you know?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
You got an idea of what you want to do outside, like, because you know how, like, there are people that get into the practice in the field of whatever they graduate from or whatnot, but then once they retire, it's like, I'm about to go open up this store. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just
fill
do
out this
something that they
passion
have,
that I
like-
had at 18. You know what I mean? You got something like that?
I honestly don't really know if I have any, like, passions like that where I'm like, I want to, like, start a bakery or some shit. You know, like, I had a patient that, like, their company IPO'd, and it was a startup, and, like, he was like 32 or something, and he just, like, retired off of that, traveled for 6 months, and then just started like making cookies, like, at his house, and he, like, got like
cookies.
a commercial license, and now he does, like, that's just what he does. He sells them. He'll go to, like, tech companies and, like, do whenever they have, like, their parties and stuff like that, and that's literally what he does. And he's like, yeah, dude, I just like to bake, and, like, I could do that because I don't have to work a
fucking
regular
dope,
job,
bro.
and it's and
Yeah, that's you've made it in
the
life.
cookies were fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really
They better
good.
be shit.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what's up.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything like that. I'd like to just have more time to, like, travel, you know, golf,
Oh, you play
just
golf?
shit like that.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to trying to get back to playing pretty soon
Yeah.
because of this
Hey,
neat
going back-
situation.
Going
but-
back to your Jamaican roots, right? Because we had Aaron on the podcast, we had Zuri on the podcast, both people with Caribbean backgrounds, and they talk about Carnival. Describe Carnival to us. You know what I mean? I know
Yeah.
we had kind of talked about it off air. What's it like out here in the West Coast versus the East Coast versus back home, and what parts?
Yeah.
You know.
Carnival is the best time of the year. It's actually in 2 weeks. It's in 2 weeks or 3 weeks technically. Every Caribbean country has a different time when they do Carnival though. So Trinidad sets it off, and that's in February, and then Jamaica's up next in April, and then some of the other countries, you know, St. Lucia, Cayman Islands, like there's carnivals all along.
Now over there in the Caribbean, is it like as it's going? Is people like? Did it start out with people would travel from island to island celebrating it? Is that how it started out, or they just happen to have different times?
So soca music is the base of Carnival, right? And the heart of soca music is Trinidad, so they kind of set the stage for it. So they have the biggest carnival.
Okay.
And then, you know, yeah, some people will travel to different countries to celebrate it, but each country has its own kind of version of it. Same music, same culture, but just their own little twist on it.
Yeah.
And then there are some in other places, like San Francisco has one. The Caribbean population is pretty small, so they do like a Caribbean, South American. Like they just do a carnival for all the cultures, which is kind of cool. Miami has one in October. I went last year. That was like 20 to 25,000 people were out there just to talk about the South Florida Caribbean population. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's an entire week of events and stuff leading up to that final road march when you're actually doing the carnival celebration. So, yeah.
Have you been back to experience Carnival in Kingston anytime recently?
Yeah. So I go every year actually. So we're 2 weeks from today. I'll be back home
Nice.
for it, and then it's that following Sunday.
Nice.
So, but yeah, it's one of those things that I will not miss. Like,
Yeah.
Damn, I
At
fuck
all.
with that.
yeah.
Hey, this might be I don't know if it's an out of pocket question,
Yeah.
but this is a super not from Jamaica.
Yeah.
my only connection to Jamaica. Yo, how accurate is Cool Runnings?
Honestly, in one of our airports, we have a bobsled.
Okay.
So I don't think it's that accurate, but it's not like completely inaccurate. It's just kind
is that
of
team
random. Like I
historic?
don't,
Is that team historic out there?
honestly, bro, I don't know. Like it's not big enough for it to be known. Like
Okay.
I know Cool Runnings was a big thing, but I think it was more so that we were just happy to get some.
That was just a
some
moment
clout,
that happened.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And they made
like,
a
just
movie
great
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel that.
Yeah. But we definitely capitalized on it because in the Montego Bay Airport, there's a bobsled. And I'm like, bro, nobody knows how to bobsled. Like, I don't even know where you would go to bobsled, you know? Like,
Everybody thinks that's a part of like Jamaican culture.
right.
I mean, obviously, it can't be because y'all don't have snow like that.
Right. Yeah.
But it's
the
just
coldest
like-
it gets there is like 75 degrees.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
So,
insane.
like,
So that was just like a motherfucker, like group of people that was just like, yo, we like this niche hobby. And
Yeah.
then they succeeded and they made a movie about it.
right. And if I'm being honest, like, is Cool Runnings based on a true story? Because I haven't watched it in like
It is.
10 or 15 years.
Allegedly.
That's
what they say.
allegedly. You know, like when they say like, you know, based on true events and it's just like, they took like one truth aspect out of
Yeah,
it.
they
Everything else
twisted.
is fake because I'm on. Yeah,
They won one test round and then they made it like they
Yeah,
won the entire
right, yeah.
competition.
because I just feel like we would know more about it if it was completely true. You know what I'm saying?
You talking
Like,
about as a country and as like,
yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah. Like I feel
that.
like it would be a bigger deal. Like, you know what I mean? We just stick to track and like that's our thing.
I feel that.
But
There's I don't know, I'd call it propaganda from American media that says over the years tourism to Jamaica has gone down because it's gotten a lot more dangerous. Is there some truth to that or no?
probably Jamaica in general is pretty dangerous. I think there's probably more light to it now, so tourism has probably dropped a little bit because of that, but it ebbs and flows actually. I'd say like over the last 5 years, crime has been down a little bit up until this past year where it's kind of spiked up a little. But in general, I tell people all the time, like Jamaica's a very dangerous place. Like you don't want to, it's very lawless, you know? It's, and I think that's just the third world country aspect of it. You know, there's really no fear of the law. There's no fear of consequences. So people just do the craziest, you know, crimes and murders and killings and stuff that you wouldn't think could happen here.
Yeah.
So, you know, whenever people go to the resort, I'm like, you know, great time. Stay on
in
the
the resort.
property, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
or
just
go with
sounds
someone
like
that's a
visiting
local or
any
something like
foreign
that.
country. You just want
Yeah.
to be with locals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I wouldn't go to the middle of Mexico and feel like I
You
should
can
just go live like a local, but like by
Yeah.
myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's the same thing, but
Exactly. So would
whatever
you
reason.
recommend it as a tourist destination for somebody who is on their P's and Q's?
I would for sure. I think there's so much culture out there. The food is so different. Like, I think for all of those reasons, you know, it's a great place to visit.
It's definitely
There's
on my
some
bucket
nice-
list.
Yeah, there's some nice natural beauty out there. You know, obviously the beaches are cool. There's a waterfall that you can climb up. Like there's a whole bunch of things to do in Jamaica for sure.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, if you're someone that likes to travel and live like the locals do, it's like you just don't want to be in Kingston just solo dolo. hanging out,
Yeah.
You know?
That's the one thing too, because like obviously, I mean, I know obviously Sudan's on a whole different level with the civil war and all that, but like even with India, bro, like I tell people, I'm like, unless even with me myself, like I really don't. I mean, I haven't been back in 10 years, but like whenever I've gone, I'm only going around with my cousins and my family because one,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to take me nowhere that I don't need to be at. Because also the other side of it, I'm not from there.
Right.
They
Yeah,
can
I'm
tell
fr-
before you even open
And
your
then
mouth.
and that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. You could tell,
Yeah.
you know, when someone's a tourist, so then you just become, you know, a target
And
right
it's the
off
same
the bat.
reason why I haven't been to Mexico because I'm like, one, I kind of want to know the language before I go, or at least be with somebody that I trust that knows the language.
Right.
Versus somebody who's actually Mexican, they go there. Yeah, bro, you can go to certain pockets that like I
Exactly.
would never go to. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it
yeah.
makes sense with Kingston being like, or Jamaica being like that. It's one
Yeah.
of those. You'd be stupid to just mob around thinking you cool. Like I'm in Cali. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I think, I don't think it's any different than a lot of these other countries. I think Jamaica, just for as small of an island as it is, it's just has a lot of popularity. And so you just hear more about it. It's a really small island still, you know?
It's funny, man. Having this conversation makes you realize that most of the rest of the world is very similar outside of like
America.
white America
Yeah.
and in Europe.
Facts.
Yeah.
And like they look at everybody else as different from them, but it's just like
That's designed that way, isn't it?
exactly. It's the system. We don't even want to get into all that.
Yeah.
But hey man, really appreciate you coming on the pod. I know it might kind of sounded like a little bit of interrogation, but
No, it was fun. It was fun.
we appreciate you sharing your story and your background because you know a lot of the theme of this podcast is us talking about you know being first, second generation immigrants and
Yeah.
You know, we like to share people's experiences because everybody's story is unique and everybody's country. There's 250 plus countries in the world, and
Right.
the amount of guests that we've had on here
Yeah.
from all different pockets of the world has been pretty crazy. So definitely appreciate you
Yeah, man.
sliding in.
I got
Hell
you.
yeah,
That was
bro.
a lot of fun, bro.
Hell yeah, bro. One last thing I want to ask you before you leave, bro. Like, what's the one thing that you, you know what I mean, coming from Jamaica out here, like, that you learned just personally? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
And it's super broad, but like,
that is quite a finishing question. So say it again. So what is one thing that I learned coming out here from Jamaica?
yeah, whether it's about yourself, whether it's about the people, whether it's about the culture, just like one takeaway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I guess. Man, I could go in so many different directions. I would just say that, like, coming out here, I think I realized, like, how much, like, how close-minded you can be just by all the information that you're fed. Like, coming from Jamaica, I think, like, I was just such a wide-eyed person, just learning about all these different cultures and knowing so many things. I know America's supposed to be, like, a super big melting pot of sorts, but it feels like kind of the opposite. So I feel like, you know, coming out here, it was very different. And that even goes back to the whole, like, oh, like, how can you be from Jamaica if you're Indian, like, stuff like that. And that's not, you know, like, I'm sure, like, a lot of other themes around that for people happen, and it's just, like, the lack of knowledge. So I just feel like even living somewhere, you know, as open as the Bay, like, you still have a lot of that there.
Yeah.
But that's probably one thing.
Well, shit, Dr. Kunal Patel, we appreciate you coming on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once a guest
I
is always a
appreciate it.
guest. So, you know, if you ever want to come back on, feel free, man. The door's open for you.
Hell
Absolutely,
yeah,
man.
brother.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Well, shit, man. On behalf of the 2 Coin Podcast, it's your boy Ronnie.
I'm your brother Waleed, and we are signing out until next time.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.